Good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Julie Calaman. I've been a member here off and on since 2015. Our speakers this morning are from Recovery Institute of Southwest Michigan, which is a place that helps people in recovery from mental illnesses and addictions. I became a member there in 2015, and RI, along with this congregation, have meant the world to me in my own recovery journey. And I was the person who had the idea to have our speakers today and have these folks tell you more about what recovery is, their recovery journey, and how sometimes recovery is a concept that surprises some people who are not in the recovery community when they learn more about the people involved with it. And it's a lot of good news. So another thing about Recovery Institute is that it's very focused on peers helping one another, as opposed to a top-down imposed method of healing. And that too is a gift as far as I'm concerned. It's been a godsend in my life. So without further chatter here, which one of you is going first? Okay, this is Arias. This is the first time I met Arias today, so I don't know much to say, but I'm sure Arias will have plenty to tell you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Something I'd like to share also is about what RI does. We have support groups that we offer throughout the week, both virtually and in person. Those are led by peers that have also struggled with mental health concerns or substance use concerns. We have one-on-one peer support that we offer to our community members for those that are struggling. And then we also do this, which is PoWeR Group, where we go around the community and we share our stories of recovery so that we can give hope, break down stigma against mental health concerns and substance use concerns, and get more people involved. My name is Arias Cruz, and to me, recovery is realizing that taking care of myself, body and mind, is paramount to my success and my relationships with others. As a child, I really struggled with mental health. I was self-harming from age 11, and when the doctors found out, my mother decided to stop taking me to seek medical care altogether, as she believed I was doing it solely for attention. I was also the kid that was involved with everything: sports, scouting, piano lessons, advanced classes, you name it, I did it. But I struggled silently. I routinely couldn't finish assignments, especially on time, and I know I frustrated teacher after teacher. At home, I was horrifically depressed, bullied by my peers, and suffering abuse from my mother while my father wasn't around. As soon as I could work at 16, I got a job, and I saved every penny I could until I could afford my first car. As soon as I turned 18, I left the hateful town that I was born into. I went to college because with loans, it was the only place I could afford housing, and then summers I either lived in company housing for work or was homeless. During holiday breaks, I often stayed with friends if they would have me. I was homeless during the polar vortex, and I remember being so cold, but also grateful to have some place to store food so it wouldn't go bad because I could use my car as a freezer. My first year at college, I also experienced multiple sexual assaults due to the highs and lows of my condition and to the introduction of alcohol. I was drinking way too much, partying during my highs, and drowning myself during my lows. My third year of college, I had my first episode of psychosis, and I was too scared to tell anyone because I knew it wasn't real. But I would see figures or eyes watching me around campus, following me. I was hospitalized for the first time that winter and again in the spring. At that point, I had dropped out of school on medical leave, and a week later, COVID hit. At this point in time, my partner and I had just found an apartment, and we spent the entirety of the peak of the pandemic trying to not get evicted. We went hungry a lot. At this point, all my mental health care also stopped for me when I needed it most. My condition continued to spiral worse without the proper meds and therapies, and was especially without my basic needs being met. Then the 2020 protests started. and I was assaulted by the police downtown during a protest. This led to extreme paranoia and impulsive behaviors and another psychotic episode. I impulsively spent almost a month's worth of paychecks on a van that didn't even run because I became convinced that the government was going to become more hostile towards the queer community, and I needed a plan to escape the country with my loved ones. With something based in reality of what was going on in the country, the Proud Boys coming to Kalamazoo, and the insurrection, my paranoia infected my friends and family as well. I scared a lot of people that I care about. Things also took a turn in 2020 as I suddenly started to lose the ability to walk, and I threw myself into fixing my body instead of my mind. The doctors couldn't tell me what was going on and told me I may never walk again. I jumped into a new job in mental health that worked well for a while, as it was a work-from-home position that required me to sit all day, but that ended in a partial hospitalization due to the heavy emotional nature of the work. I thought if I could help others, I could help myself, but instead I just became more traumatized. Finally, doctors had identified my physical issues, but they gave me a life expectancy of only 35. I left that job for my dream job, where I thought I had finally made it out of poverty, my only goal to buy a home to be able to die comfortably in. But I lost that job a few months later after being told if they knew I was this disabled, they wouldn't have hired me in the first place. I was shattered as I felt I was running out of time to find stability before my condition worsened. Shattered because I was convinced that after a lifetime of working multiple jobs, no one would want to hire me again. The day I was fired, I attempted my first planned suicide attempt, and while I survived, I found out 2 days later my best friend from early childhood had passed away from her own substance use disorder at only 23. I then got the news that my life expectancy was now 65, but she died before I could tell her. This was my breaking point. I sunk into the deepest grief-filled depression of my life, and I went to Recovery Institute for the first time. I thought they would judge me because they knew me from my old job. I thought they would judge me for being fired, but they didn't. That summer was awful. I lost another friend to poverty, and my cousin to substance use disorder at also 23. I worked a few more jobs that I continued to lose due to my physical health, and finally, exhausted, I got the courage to choose me and apply for disability. I realized that I couldn't keep going like I had been all my life, and I was tired. I got top surgery and started hormone replacement therapy, affirming my gender instead of letting that sit on the sidelines. I got a therapist that was trans and disabled, so I could finally start receiving care from someone who could get past what made me different. And I got a psychiatrist that understood that police intervention was traumatizing, so I could finally open up about my symptoms. At 24, I finally got diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was put on the meds that actually helped my spikes of low depression and high mania. While a lot of my basic needs are still unmet, while I've been waiting on disability since November of 2023, I have friends and family that support me. I have the tools to use when I'm having a hard time. I sit at the board of Recovery Institute, which means the world to me. I've spoken at Peach Jam on mental health, and I've returned to college last fall to finish my degree in social work. I've also been in housing since 2019 and work with We the People for tenants' rights. Medication wasn't a magic fix. It was hard, but I realized that doing hard things was and is worth it, especially when it came to taking care and bettering myself. While things aren't easy, I'm happy to announce that I was approved for disability. I start getting paychecks next month, and I'll have an income again. I have tools and skills in the community to support me, and now at 26, I am in long-term recovery. Thank you.
Thanks, Rias. Okay, I'm Patrick. Chelsea was going to present today. She was not feeling well, so I'm always the backup person. So I'm the coordinator for PoWeR Group. My story is different from a lot of PoWeR Group members. There's always similarities and differences. That's what makes us keeps things interesting. But for me, my childhood was mostly easy, comfortable. I had everything I needed. My Probably my only difficulty was that my dad was busy with work and had sort of a temper issue, but nothing extreme. But I did get into a little bit of depression in the fifth grade, moving from California to Michigan. The change in weather, you can imagine, was not desirable. Um, but later in my life, I actually did choose to move. I ended up in California again, but I chose to move back to Kalamazoo because, for whatever reason, I still love it here. Ultimately, I am able to deal with the weather and just look at the positives. But so through middle school and into high school, I did suffer with what I think was probably diagnosable depression. And I think part of the problem is I was trying to fit in with the crowd that I thought my dad would want me to fit in with, like sort of the kids of his coworkers and that whole crowd. And really, my crowd was more the artistic type. And fortunately, but unfortunately, I found the punk rock crowd. I still have some friends that I'm still connected with from there. So they were great. They were accepting. They were like, the crazier you are, the better. And I thought that was great. I could just be who I was no matter what. The downside was that they were into drugs. Not blaming them, because I had already made a decision to get into drugs before I'd even tried them. I was like, that's what I want to do. I just, I was enticed by, the offer of like euphoria, intense experiences, supernatural experiences. That's really what I was going for. Nowadays, when I do Power Group, I tell the young people, you can have all those things without drugs. You can explore spirituality, you can read books, meditation. There's all kinds of things you can do. And I can tell people honestly now that I wish I had never done drugs. I would have been better off without. I did not need them. I could have achieved all the things I wanted and much, much more without them. I've actually suffered some memory issues and related things because of drugs, a lot of chemical imbalances. And really, throughout those high school days, doing things like using LSD every weekend with my friends because, there'd be days I didn't want to use it, but they all were, and I didn't want to be the odd man out, so I would use with them. It was not a good combination for somebody like me who already had a tendency towards schizophrenia. So even smoking weed once or twice can trigger schizophrenia if you're susceptible. So to do LSD every weekend was really not a good thing. So I made it through high school, but when I went to college, I went to Pennsylvania because my cousin worked there at a college and stayed with him. And things seemed okay on the surface, but I had little things that were sort of questionable. At one point, I met this girl, and I told a friend before I went to college, I'm going to meet a girl. I'm going to look in her eyes. I'm going to know she's the one. It's going to be like destiny, and then we're going to get married and have these kids, and it's going to be great. I just had this in my head. Maybe I'd watched too many romantic movies. I don't know, something like that. And I also was walking through campus one day, and I was watching someone walk past me, and a little voice in my head said a comment about that person, and it was something funny, kind of poking fun at the person, but I just cracked up laughing right there, and I thought, like, wow, that's amazing. Somebody can be inside my head and see what I'm seeing and make a comment about somebody. That's really interesting. Like, wow, have I achieved the supernatural? This is great. So more about that in a minute. But the girl, I ended up seeing this girl that I had imagined, So I look in her eyes and it's destiny, and I ask her on a date and she says yes. And for whatever reason, that doesn't play out. Later on, she's like, I've got a boyfriend, it's not going to work. And she goes to another college. I'll ruin the story. I never see her again. But I had it in my head that was the girl, right? So I kept building on this. And, over the next year, I'm like, I guess we'll have kids. And then I think, well, what will their names be? So I start naming them. And then they have middle names. and then they have personalities, and then I know what they look like, and then I start talking to them in my head, and then I start living out my life from the future in my head. So like, I'm literally going to hockey games, watching my son play hockey, and then having a conversation with him after the game, thinking that I'm just getting a little sneak preview of my life from the future, and that it's all actually going to happen in real time. So that's a little troublesome, right? Especially considering it's never actually going to happen. And then that voice in my head that I thought was so great and amazing, turns out that voice wasn't going to go anywhere. That voice was going to stay with me eventually, all day, all the time, constantly. Even when I'm trying to go to sleep, it wouldn't leave me alone. I think, it's constantly insulting me and reading my thoughts, and I have no privacy, and it's just constant. And I'm trying to go to sleep thinking I'll get some relief if I can just sleep, and it won't let me sleep. Just at me. Really a struggle. And, I mess up college. I'm not going to some of my classes, and I get sent back home with my folks, and that doesn't go well. I'm like destroying the house, and I'm convinced that I should be more like primitive people. So I'm on guard all the time, and I'm thinking I should be afraid of everything, and it makes me sort of like have violent tendencies, and so like I'm facing off with my dad, thinking like this is a good thing. This is giving him primal energy. So I have these unusual ideas, right, that are not helpful to me. Eventually, some mental health people come into the home, drag me off in cuffs. I end up in the hospital. I end up in jail. Over the next 10 years, I'm in and out of jail and the hospitals on court orders, forced on medications. I was put in restraints a couple times, and all bad experiences. And it made me really angry towards the mental health system. To me, the mental health system was the people responsible for me getting dragged off in cuffs, put on medications that made it where I couldn't move, put in restraints, which was traumatizing to me. To me, that was like being claustrophobic and put in a coffin. It was very scary. So mental health was my enemy. So it turns out, towards the end of that 10 years that I mentioned, I'm doing drugs every day, hard drugs, actually crack cocaine. And one thing that happens is because I'm either strung out on drugs or wanting more drugs or high on drugs or trying to get more, the voices aren't really bothering me. But it's obviously not a good solution because I'm fighting friends over cigarette butts. I've got no food because I get a little food card for food, right? And I sell it as soon as I get it, and I've got no food for the month. So dinner is mustard out of the refrigerator, out of the bottle, and that's what I'm having for dinner. So ultimately, I get tired of it. I'm like, something has to change. Life is worth more than this. My family, in the meantime, has been working on their own recovery because they would try to help me, and I was like, I didn't want to hear it. I would try to talk them out of money. That's the best I could do. They didn't fall for it. But they got into something called National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI for short, which was kind of their own recovery because they could help other people, they could help other families, they could do something positive. But eventually I was able to see what they were doing from a distance and be like, maybe there is some kind of hope for me. Maybe there's something I can do. So I thought, I still want a family someday. And I made a promise to that future family, whatever they were, not the family I dreamed up, obviously, but some kind of family. I made a promise to them, I'm going to get clean. So I stayed up all night because I thought if I go to sleep, I might change my mind. And I called the mental health team and I said, I've been using this whole time. They said, yes, obviously. And then they got me into a rehab, and I got into a recovery home that helped me stay away from those environments with the drugs. If I went back to that apartment, I would have been right back to using, but I was able to stay out of that. And eventually got clean and heard about this peer support job, which meant if I could get some recovery under my belt, and do well, I could help other people do the same thing. And that was pretty interesting, especially considering I had pretty much no job resume. So I thought I'll start with that, because all that was available was just entry-level jobs, and I was 30 years old. Excuse me. And, you know, at this point, I'm 30 years old. Is it really likely I'm going to have this wife with 7 kids, and I'm 30 years old? It's not likely, right? And so I slowly start to let go of that idea. And at this time also, that voice that would not leave me alone, I finally said to that voice, I said, what about you? I mean, you're so angry with me. You want to hurt me all the time. What about you? And that voice actually opened up to me and said, you know, I'm hurting too. I'm suffering. And I shifted to being a support to that voice. I started talking to him and like, how can I help you? And I no longer wanted revenge. All this time I wanted revenge. I wanted to get back at him for torturing me all that time. And that was gone. It didn't matter anymore. I just wanted to help him. And so I was able to help him. And to this day, he's like, hey, we're battle buddies, right? And it's just a pleasant experience now. The compassion took over, you know. And now I have become a peer support. I joined a recovery group and met this girl that was pretty interesting, and we crossed paths for a couple of years and sort of had a distant respect for each other, and I ultimately got married, and she had 2 kids when we got married, and we had 2 kids together. We adopted a 4-year-old, and my stepkids have 2 grandkids, so I'm up to 7 kids, which was what I was working towards. They're all real. I can show you pictures. And I also run Hearing Voices Network meetings in the community as well as in the psychiatric hospital. And I tell people that having compassion for voices can be a way to get leverage to deal with distressing voices, and can be a healing experience, which is a technique that's actually recognized across the whole world in something called the Hearing Voices Network. And I work with my wife. We do mental health projects together, and it's a great experience. Early on in my recovery, I actually got involved with PoWeR Group and went around telling my story, which at that time was not a lot of recovery, but a lot of, talking about my struggle in the mental health system and how poor my experience was, and that I wanted to work towards change. And here I am full circle running PoWeR Group now, and things are much better. And what we do is try to create something positive. We try to educate. We try to inspire hope. And I'm really grateful to be here, and grateful to see this full room of inspired people. So thanks for having us.